Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Joining me today on Calgary's podcast is Chris Kerr, who is president and founder of XA Security. Thanks, Chris, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's just talk a little bit, first of all, Chris, about XA Security. Tell me a little bit about what it is and what it does.
At our core, we're a security guard company. We're 21 years old. We're based in Calgary and have a branch in Edmonton, so Alberta based. We have interesting roots. Our roots are in entertainment, and so we were born in the concert and kind of music festival business, and over the years have transitioned into a broader platform of security guard services.
So tell me, beyond the music right now, what kind of venues do you do security for?
We do all sorts. We do commercial, residential, construction development. Obviously, still entertainment is a big part of what we do. But yeah, largely we're seeing a lot of growth and a lot of interest in the construction space in particular, especially in Calgary. Lots going on. And multifamily residential is a very popular spot for us these days.
You do much retail. The reason I ask is because I go into malls these days and I see certain places have a security guard at the door where in the past I never would have had one.
Well, it's a space we'd love to get into, and we don't do a lot of retail, and and perhaps that's a bit of a lead in into the why, which is COVID changed us a lot, and we were an entertainment business prior to COVID, and became a more broad security business with more of an entertainment business unit after COVID. So. It's interesting because as much as we're 21 years old, I often say we're five in a lot of these markets, right? And so retail is something that is on our roadmap for sure. We think, the kind of skill set our team has developed in dealing with people over the years would be great alignment there. But yeah, we I often look and wonder what else could we do. I'd like to do it all, but there's only so many hours in a day, so we kind of follow the path that we're on and get to that in a strategic way is the goal.
So tell me how this all came about. Like, what generated this idea to do this?
Well, I was going to school at the University of Calgary, and I was kind of meandering my way around different majors, trying to figure out what to do with my life at the young age of 17 when I started, and I found my way to the student union, and so I became involved with student politics there, and specifically served on the events portfolio. So I discovered concerts through going to school and being a part of McEwen Hall here at the U of C, which produced a number of really well-known shows back then. And it was just one thing that led to another. I found myself being more active on the staff end of the shows, and we had a challenge with some supplier and vendor kind of fulfillment. And we started as a stagehand business in solving a problem to get the number of people we needed to help build our shows. Um, and then a year later, we got into security and kind of looked at it and said, well, we're managing these shows from an organizational standpoint. And we weren't really thrilled with the options and kind of the behavior of security at the time. It was very kind of nightclub, bouncer, big, tough kind of
Yeah.
inspired. And so as a student kind of leader at the time, I said, well, there's got to be a better way to kind of treat the students that are the primary customer of this show. And not seeing many options, a couple of guys and I took matters into our own hands and decided to get into the security business ourselves so we could build the team that would treat our fans the way that we wanted them to be treated. And that was ultimately the impetus of
Oh,
the company.
so a couple of just out of curiosity questions. I'm curious. What was the biggest music event that you've served security on?
We've been around. So if you've lived in Calgary or Edmonton, you have likely seen our yellow shirts, and we've probably searched you going into something. We've worked on most of the major events in the province for the last 20 years and have been lucky to have most of the major players as our clients. Biggest shows we've done, gosh, we've done the Queen when she visited, the Rolling Stones. We've done worked on Big Valley Jamboree, music festivals like Chasing Summer, the Calgary Stampede, all sorts of things.
Wow.
We've literally we've probably admitted over 1 million, 2 million people through the gates over those 20 years, I would say.
Wow. So tell me, if can you recall like one particular incident that was kind of the quote unquote worst incident that you had to deal with and at any of the events?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about events is that they're temporary small towns, right? And depending on the size of the event,
Yeah.
the incidents scale, right? So when we do a festival, say a 30,000 person event or a 50,000 person event, that's the equivalent of a 50,000 person town. You have people meet, their future partners, they break up, they get injured, they have heart attacks, they get in fights, they overconsume, they do too many drugs. So there can be weather events, there can be external threats. There's just a myriad of things that can combine and converge on these days. So we've seen lots over those years. Our team was notably providing security services in the outer perimeter of the Big Valley Jamboree in 2009 when the storm took the stage down that year. And so I think that was a really catalyst moment for us to shift our thinking from being more of a hey, we're having a good time, we're doing events and we get to do this and this is fun, to oh, this is also very real and has high consequence, in moments like that. So that one was certainly memorable among others.
Before I forget, what does XA stand for?
It stands for Experience Ambassadors.
Okay.
And we look at ourselves as ambassadors of experiences, whether that's our fans or our clients. And when people hire us, they're looking for us to represent their place, right? So when we when we're providing security services at a venue, let's just say it's the Stampede for example, people don't call us to complain. They don't typically dig deep to figure out who the vendor is. They will light up the Stampede. So we've always looked at it like we wear the badge of the people that we represent, and so we're their ambassadors, and it's important to us that we honor that. So that's where the name came from.
Yeah, I'm also curious about when you're looking at an event that's got thousands and thousands of people, as you mentioned, how much planning goes into each event? When do you start, first of all, when do you start planning for an event, and how long do you think it takes just for the actual planning part of it?
Well, over the 20 years of doing this, I've worn two hats. And so, I joke that in the early, decade of the business, we really ran it off the side of my desk because the two partners I founded it with back then owned a concert company and they were promoters and I worked for them. So I have a career as an event producer. And so to answer that question is complex. It's anywhere from a day
Yeah.
to years, right? Depending on the size of the event. And so there are some events that have full-time staff that they work on one event that spans, 2 to 7, 10 days a year. But I would say, when you're working on the concert, a typical ticketed event side of things, those things are planned typically about a year out,
Yeah.
on average. Artists decide when they're going to route a tour and when they decide they want to be out, and then promoters find time to get venue dates, and hockey seasons need to be figured out before you can lock in dates and all that kind of stuff, right? So you typically start about a year out and then it really ramps up in the 3 months out.
Do you typically attend a lot of the events yourself?
I've been to many, many events.
Yeah.
Yes, in my life. I I try to get out as much as I can, but the team is pretty big, and we handle a lot of events these days. But I do try to get out a couple times a month at least for sure.
So what is the biggest thing from your standpoint that's changed, say, in the 20 odd years there, in terms of security? Has there been something that stands out that's been the biggest change from when you first started?
I think that the industry has evolved, and I think that technology has really started to step up as far as participating in this. 20 years ago, when we got started, it was very much a game of numbers of people looking out for positions. Camera technology was very expensive to deploy at the time. And so we've seen a real evolution now in the security space, both in entertainment and in static and mobile security, is the advancement of technology and the ability to leverage AI analytics and real-time notifications have really enabled people to do a lot more with less. And so it's changed the security guard business, I think, quite a bit in the sense where if the old sales pitch was, hey, you got a 2 acre site and you need this many people 24 hours a day, it's now, well, you could probably do that with one if you have strategic cameras and really good AI notification set up. And where can we integrate tightly in that system so we get those notifications immediately? So all that's changing. The old days of monitoring stations and people watching 8 screens at a time are now AI, and the notifications are instantaneous. And so the evolution for us is to figure out, I think, where the humans still fit into that, because people are still a big part of the equation for the foreseeable future, decades, but it's changing with how much humans do need to be involved. So it's an interesting time in security.
Okay, so the stereotype, the typical perception that someone would have of a security guard, big muscular guy. Tell me what you guys look for in security guards today.
Well, sometimes you do need that. Sometimes you need the higher skill set and the training and the physical strength to do certain tasks for sure. But typically, what we see in the security guard market, where it's customer facing or more retail, residential level, is people that can get cooperation from others. And so if I look back on where we started the business and where I think we were really successful, is identifying that the best people to manage concert people are other people that like going to concerts and understand how concerts work. And so on that idea, we looked for lifeguards and teachers, and we really built the that part of the business as the come work for us for your vacation fund, not your full-time job. And what we found is we got a really interesting subset of people that had a vast skill set and background, and it was incredible. And so we try now to mirror that in the property and the construction and that sort of space. And we're looking for people that have experience in those spaces, that understand how a construction site works, that know the nuances of those things, that can be helpful at those sites and have some baseline of safety understanding and that kind of thing. So we're always trying to find people that have some parallel experience in the space that we're trying to put them in.
Roughly how many security guards do you have?
The roster is a little over 700 right now.
Wow,
It changes regularly.
wow, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious about your thoughts about security in general. And I mentioned earlier, about running into a couple of security guards at the front door of certain retailers. Uh, yes, am I correct in saying we're seeing more security guards in all facets of our lives these days? And if so, why?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that partly they've always also kind of been there. I think that we're seeing them be more visible as well these days. There's definitely, crime is up. And it's one of those industries that's got an inverse relationship with the economy, right? Because the worse it is out there, the more we see people getting desperate, petty crime rises, that kind of thing. So we see that increase in presence. And I think it's just been a general trend over the last couple decades is that it's no secret that police resources are down. We see less beat cops on the street. It's challenging to get financing and money for those things from the government. So businesses turn to private options, and I think that's why you're seeing an increase in insecurity and retail theft is crazy. You can see videos online of people grabbing armloads of parkas and walking out the front door. So I think oftentimes when you look at how many staff it takes to run a shop or a bigger store, a sporting goods store, adding one more position that's only responsibility is loss prevention seems like I think a bit of low-hanging fruit for retailers these days.
What do you like about being an entrepreneur?
Oh, great question. I mean, the easy answer is the freedom, but it's that comes with at a high cost for sure. I like the people. I've always enjoyed the people. I like meeting people. I like talking to people. I like hearing people's stories. And so the opportunity to build teams and to meet people and to accomplish things together, it's just fun and it's interesting and overcoming obstacles with people you've known for a long time or have just met are both, equally exciting opportunities. So I love the people the most, and the freedom to get to meet people, talk to people, and learn from people is the best.
When you first started out, what was your biggest challenge, you would say, in starting up a business?
Um, oh gosh, back then it would have been just resources. I think to my first year, and maybe we did $35,000 in revenue in the first year, right? And wages were very different back then in 2004, and so it was hard. I think for me, I always had a high standard, and I always was interested in delivering a high level product. So just buying uniforms back then was very difficult as someone in his 20s just out of school. There was no independent financing at the time to go and buy inventory and uniforms and radios and all those things that cost money. So I think that was the hardest part. I think the closing the business was kind of the fun part because it was in a space that we were really active in, and interestingly that was the easy part.
You know, running a business and based in Calgary, what would you say the benefits are of being a business owner in Calgary and in a broader sense in Alberta, in this province?
I think the community in Calgary is incredible, and I think that if that's the one thing that I wish I had been engaged with earlier was the business community. I think it's remarkable the number of art entrepreneurs that exist in Alberta. And I think what's even more interesting is the number of them that I have met that are true startup from nothing entrepreneurs. And so I think the grit and the storytelling and the support network in Alberta is really outstanding. And it's been a big part of our business, especially for the last decade. On top of that, I think in general, it's a nice place to live. The people are good, right? And I think that the cost of living is such that you can find great talent here. And it's been a meaningful and fun place to grow a business, and it's been rewarding to be in this province and in this city. It's a great
Perfect.
place to be.
Um, when you look at your journey as an entrepreneur, do you have any mentors along the way, or any books or people that of successful entrepreneurs that you looked up to and learned from?
Yeah, I think along the way, could I name any one mentor? No, I've had lots along the way. Some of them entrepreneurs and some not. A lot of my early influence was obviously in the entertainment business. The guy that runs McEwen Hall, his name is Greg Curtis. He's very well known in the entertainment business, and we often joke that a lot of us that grew up in the concert production space spent some time at the school of Greg Curtis. And Greg was great and is great because he's always been so focused on people and the customer experience and relationships. And I think I learned that was lucky to learn that from him and the others around him, that the importance of treating people with respect and honoring relationships. There was another producer, a guy named Dave Fortune, who lives in Vancouver, that said to me when I was a young volunteer in that space at one of the Warped Tours a long time ago, he said, never forget who all of us on the ground are, right? Because the people paying the bills and the entities that employ us will come and go, but we will all be here in some combination,
Hmm.
20 years from now. So make sure you respect people and you treat people well and treat your team well. And that always stuck with me. And so, those two guys in particular in the early years had a lot of influence with how I honored relationships and the importance of relationships. And I would say that's probably our key strength these days. As far as books, two that come to mind:
Ah,
Mandatory Business Reading is From Good to Great by Jim Collins, and Unreasonable Hospitality. Um, oh my God, I'm spacing on his name, but 11 Madison Park, Unreasonable Hospitality. It'll come to me.
okay.
I remember his name. It's such a good book.
What was it about those two books that struck a chord with you?
I think From Good to Great, the principle of a business being a bus, and you have a limited number of seats, and you got to have the right people in the right seats to get to where you're going, was fundamentally very important. And also, I found that book just so interesting in the way that it was very analytical, that it took a subset of companies that were doing pretty good, that all of a sudden were doing really well, like great, and analyzed what those commonalities between them were. And it's just a very data driven, fact based book that looked at common denominators across ultra successful companies. So I think it's just a great book to try and get an understanding of the different components that make up a business.
Huh.
And then Unreasonable Hospitality is the story of building 11 Madison Park, which was a kind of a fledgling fine dining restaurant in New York to become the best restaurant in the world, I believe in 2017. And the story is completely centered around these fantastic customer experience ideas that they had that helped drive them to get there. So there's a lot of homage paid to a lot of the stories in that book, and the popular show The Bear on FX. And so it's just, if you're in a customer facing space of any kind, it's just, can't recommend that book enough. It really defines, overall the concept of surprise and delight.
Hmm, interesting. So obviously being an entrepreneur and in any business is almost like a 24/7 adventure. Just curious, how do you relax? What kind of interest do you have outside of work?
Well, I got my family, my wife Beth, and my kids Nora and Aiden. They keep me, entertained and busy, and love hanging out with them. Obviously, any chance I get. Recreationally, I love to ski. I joined the Canadian Ski Patrol as a volunteer a few years ago, so I try to get out and do that as much as I can. I love that. I love to hike. I love to backcountry camp with the kids. I love to mountain bike. I like to golf. I like being active. So anytime I can be outdoors, even if it's in the garden, I'm outdoors.
And that's, I think it was one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs forget, right? And is that aspect, because if you don't have that balance, you're going to burn out, right?
Absolutely. And one thing that I like about, the the fundamental business operating system we use at the company is it compels us to take what they call clarity breaks, and just the importance of a day or a half day for just complete disconnection and just thoughts and being alone in thoughts. So we really try to do that with our management team, and our leadership team here is facilitate and encourage everybody to take that time, whether it's outdoors or on your back patio or whatever. But yeah, it's so important. Gotta get that clarity.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris, for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
All right, that was Chris Kerr, who is president and founder of XA Security in Calgary. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us today.